Hello, hello, everybody. We're going to wait for a few minutes for people to log in. Welcome to Reader's Corner. Ah, yes.
I hope that everyone's been having a good week.
Yeah,
Excited
how's
for the
everybody's
weekend.
Friday? How are Fridays? Positive feelings about Fridays? Neutral feelings about Fridays? Stacy, what are your feelings about Fridays?
Fridays are okay. I work on Saturday. So Saturday is way more exciting.
This is not your Friday. I got you.
This is not my Friday.
This is not at all your Friday. Okay, that works.
So conflicted feelings.
Conflicted feelings about the Friday. Okay. Yeah. I am generally a fan of Fridays, so that's exciting.
I think most people are.
Okay. I think we should probably go ahead and get started. What do you think?
No, it seems good. All right.
Seems good.
Well,
all right.
Thank you guys for joining us. This is APL's Reader's Corner. What are we talking about today? We are talking about All Out, the No Longer Secret Stories of Queer Teens Throughout the Ages by Saundra Mitchell.
It's mirrored here, but you can see it.
And you have a physical book, which is great because I had an audio
You had the audiobook, so.
which was really interesting. This is an anthology of short stories throughout the ages, as the title suggests. We'll be focusing on the genre of LGBTQ voices. So if you're unfamiliar with Reader's Corner, it's a book review discussion. Each book is picked by staff members on staff preference, sort of, on Hoopla. And we review a book from a different genre every week. So everyone who's watching, feel free to join in, jump in with questions, discussions, and
absolutely.
I'm excited to start talking about this.
Me too. So I'm Elizabeth, as many of you already know. And
I'm Stacy. I should have said that first.
It's okay. They know us by now. They love us. They've seen us before. And so technically we signed up for this as queer voices for the genre. I feel like it falls more under historical fiction, though. And so here's why I'm going out on that limb. So historical fiction generally is just fiction. It can be period pieces from any age or era that sort of delves into it, could deal with actual historical events or just historical settings. And so how closely the historical fiction adheres to actual history varies widely. So on the one hand, you have authors like, going to date myself here, Anne Rinaldi, who has pretty close and heavily researched texts that she rocks. And then on the other hand, you have, by one of our authors today, The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee, who just sort of plays fast and loose with, okay, here's the historical period, and this is what we're working with. And now, here's this character I made up in this really cool situation I made up with this really cool events that are happening around that character. And I'm not bashing that at all either, because I love those two. That's basically how my historical fiction looks, because, pirates. But the reason, so if you go on Goodreads to look at this, it's probably going to be listed under a couple of tags for genres, a couple of genre tags, and one of them is going to be LGBT, and one of them is going to be historical fiction. And so the reason I'm going with one and not the other is because I've seen several of the authors in this anthology sort of push back against that idea of queer fic as its own genre. So that's kind of where I'm going there. So, yeah.
I could see that.
Yes, but it's still, so if we're doing queer lit as a genre, it's definitely expanded. So for a while, it was strictly coming of age stories, and that was back and back and back. You have the pulp of the 50s, which is funsies for everybody, and one of the authors in this anthology wrote an entire book about. And then you have, of course, now where you can have, any sort. You can have sci-fi, fantasy, whatever, with queer characters. Mm-hmm. Everybody say hi, Ragu. She just ran by in the background. Hi, Ragu.
Hi, Ragu.
Okay, thank you. Okay, back to you, Stacy, for the title and summary and author and goodness for this item.
All right. So for all out the no longer secret stories of queer teens throughout the ages, which I realize right now is a very long title. On Hoopla, the summary of the book is: take a journey through time and genres to discover stories where queer teens live, love, and shape the world around them. 17 young adult authors across this queer spectrum have come together to create a collection of beautifully written, diverse historical fiction for teens. So from the retelling of Little Red Riding Hood, set in war-torn 1870s Mexico, featuring a transgender soldier, to two girls falling in love while mourning the death of Kurt Cobain, forbidden love in the 16th century Spanish convent, or an asexual girl discovering her identity amid the 1970s roller disco scene. All Out tells a diverse range of stories across cultures, time periods, and identities, shedding light on an area of history often ignored or forgotten.
Alrighty.
Which I think is a pretty good summary of the book. Because it's an anthology, each story's got its own summary. But because it's an anthology, so the author is technically Saundra Mitchell, but she's mostly an editor who put together a collection of stories from about, how many different authors are there? 17?
17 authors, that's right.
And so I'm going to talk a little bit about Saundra Mitchell. So she grew up in Indianapolis, and she's married currently with a wife and kids. For 20 years, she was a head screenwriter and executive producer for Dreaming Tree Films on various teen filmmaking programs. So far, she's written nearly 20 different novels, ranging from fiction, nonfiction, and editing of anthologies.
Nice.
I think she mostly
you
don't have to call me out on it. She mostly most of her anthologies are about queer teens.
Alrighty.
So, Elizabeth, if you would like to talk about...
I will talk about all the 17 authors. Yes. Okay, so I've read some of these authors before and have feelings about them, which is splendid. All right, so over here we've got first author in the anthology, Anne-Marie Miclemore, who is great. And so they typically write about fantasy books, often a lot of fairy tale rewrites. So they wrote a Snow White Rose Red retelling, which was really fun. I wanted the word swans. Please imagine I said swans instead. They rewrote the Red Shoes. They rewrote their own versions of fairy tale inspired works, like their very first When the Moon Was Ours has Snow White inspiration in some of the plot elements, but is not directly from Snow White. So I like their work, near and dear to my heart. Good times. Next is Natalie C. Parker, who we're going to be talking about a bit, since we both really liked her story, because she is pirates, and we like pirates. So she's got a couple series going on. Seafire series is going to be one that a lot of people are familiar with, and that's going to be the all-female crew, or mostly female crew of pirates sailing the seven seas, which is good times. It's on my list. We've got Nyla Magruder. I read her storytime book, How to Find a Fox, a little while ago. She is both author and illustrator, has illustrated for Marvel, and has her own graphic novel called MFK, starring an asexual protagonist, much like her story in this anthology. We have Mackenzie Lee, whose main series is Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, that she's got going on. So that's got Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy, and has a third novel in that series coming out. She also does have an upcoming novel set in Amsterdam, like her story in this book. I have feelings. Maybe skip it. But we'll go into those later. We've got Robin Talley. Sorry, I'll move faster. Limited time. Robin Talley, who often actually does write queer historical fic. That does seem to be her genre. So she's got novels from 1977, 1950s, 1950s again, and then a Macbeth retelling, which I am so excited for. We've got Melinda Lowe, whose specialty is fantasy and sci-fi. most famous for Ash, her Cinderella retelling. Dahlia Adler runs the blog LGBTQ Reads, wrote the novel Under the Lights. Kate Skelsa, who's actually a playwright, and I hadn't heard of her before this anthology. Elliot Wake, who writes contemporary. Scott Tracy, who writes thriller, horror, and urban fantasy, and branched out for this anthology. Tess Sharp, who has a really cool book about baking witches, not book, short story in another anthology, Toil and Trouble, about baking witches, which I love. Also wrote for Captain Marvel. Alex Sanchez, who writes contemporary. Cody Keplinger, most famous for The Duff. My favorite of hers is Run. Sarah Farizen, who is most well known for her Iranian American books. She focuses specifically on the intersectionality there. Tessa Grattan, who is known both for her Shakespearean rewrites Queens of Venice, Lear, and Lady Hotspur, both queer, and her fabulous novel Strange Grace, which is YA featuring a poly trio, which is rare for YA. Sean David Hutchinson, who writes at the meteoric rate of one book a year. Bravo to you, sir. And most recent novel is Brave Face, which is a memoir, perhaps most famous for We Are the Ants. And Taylor K. Mejia, who wrote We Set the Dark on Fire and Unleash the Merciless Storm, which is for all of you out there who are like, but enemies to lovers, where is it? I found it for you. It's right over there. Go get it. Go read it. It's good. How was that for speeding through everything really fast? Did that cover
really
all 17 really fast? Okay. If you missed one or want more info, any of you out there, just let me know down there in the comments and I will link things because, yes, authors. Cool. Social media while I breathe.
Yeah, take a break. So the social media reviews for this anthology are all really high. Amazon gave it a 4.5 out of 5. Goodreads gave it a 3.98 out of 5, and Hoopla gave it a 4.5. I didn't look into what the ratings are on each individual story, so I just did the collection, but
I looked at some of them, and there's pretty consistent highs and lows, but it always feels weird to me in anthologies being like, this one got 5 stars, and this one got 2. That feels weird to me. It's an anthology. You're all sort of cooperating. We love each other, so.
Exactly why it's an anthology.
Right.
So I think we can move on to sort of just discussing the book. So you've read this book before. You have the physical copy and everything. I listened to the audiobook for this.
And you got the audiobook from Hoopla or Overdrive?
Hoopla. So this is available on Hoopla. I'm pretty sure I said that earlier.
You might have actually. My bad.
Who knows?
Who knows at this stage in our lives?
Yeah, we're too far in. I really like anthologies, mostly just because I think if this book was written by just one author covering each year, because each story takes place in a different historical time, maybe not, I think it gets less diverse. There's like a bunch in the 90s and 80s, but then there's some in like the 1300s, 1600s, and I just feel like had this all just been a bunch of short stories written by one person, we would see a lot of limitations and a lot of personal bias, since, you know, they have their experiences and you can only write so much outside what you know.
Also, it's useful to have a bunch of different voices telling these stories, because you wouldn't want just one, like the Omni Rainbow, ultimate queer descending from the heavens to write all of the stories. This would be very not fun for anyone.
I agree. But I did like Omni Rainbow. It's a very, very good way to describe what this would be if one person has written it.
Sorry. Quickest side note. I've seen complaints from publishers that are like, we got another letter saying that this book contains an LGBTQ character. Which one?
What?
Is it all of them? Yes, it's apparently a thing where people send in the thing and they're like, we have an LGBTQ character in this book. And it's like, so it's all of them? It's the L, the G, the B, the T, and the Q. Like, okay, LGBTQ characters, that might be possible, but just the one. Just one.
Which one was the one that made people uncomfortable? It's funny. How do you go into a book with the word queer in the title and then complain about queer representation?
No, this wasn't people complaining. This is like, sorry. This is publishers separately who I follow on Twitter because I'm a nerd, who are like, I got another query today containing the person advertising that they have an LGBTQ character somewhere in this book.
Oh,
and inevitably,
I thought you were saying people were complaining about
it.
And I was like, what?
If you see this book and you're like, I'm going to get this and complain, then what are you even doing with your life? How do you have that much time? I don't have that much time on my hands. So no, I was just talking in general. Please continue.
Okay.
It was a tangent. We're going back to things. Yes, sorry. The Omni Rainbow. I just wanted to go off on a brief tangent about the Omni Rainbow. Okay.
So I feel like the story that I liked the most was the story that sounds like you did not like at all.
I liked it okay. I just don't like the author. But yeah, let's talk about it.
That's fair. I don't know the author. I only have knowledge from the audiobook and the one story, which was chapter 4, Burnt Embers by, who is the author for that one?
Yeah, Burnt Umber Mackenzie Lee.
Thank you. I don't have the author like right on me. But that one resonated with me a lot. And I think it was because I listened to the audiobook version, because I don't know if it was the author reading it or someone else reading it, but they just had so much voice and so much, I don't know. It was the voice. The content connected with me, the humor connected with me, the voice connected with me. As an artist, I responded well with I should clarify, it took place in 1600s. With
Amsterdam, I think, yeah?
Amsterdam, about a boy learning to become an artist. He's like at an art school. So I connected really strongly because I'm an artist, so a lot of the metaphors and symbolism I understood, and it just, I understood where he was coming from with it. But then there was things like, I have a quote written down because it genuinely made me laugh out loud. I paused it and then rewound it just so I could listen to it again, where it says, a wild giggle escapes me. Jute raises his eyebrows and I look around for some sort of palette knife on which I could fall on and impale myself. And like, that's genuine dialogue.
You're like that
goes through my head.
Embarrassment that you were like, ah, yes, this.
When I say something and I'm like, why did I say that? Don't say it, and then another quote, don't say it again, but of course I do. So, I don't know, there was just like small things like that I really liked. It was really cool. Is there, I don't know.
Do I want to chime in on this one? Yeah, so I liked Burnt Umber as well. I'm trying to remember. So I know the name of the beginning love interest, shall we say, was Jute. Is the main character, do I have that right? Wilhelm? Is that his name? I'm grabbing my book to look. Hang on. So Augustus is one of the other painters present at the place. Yeah. Since it's written in first person, it's always hard for me to keep track in first person of names. Constantin.
Oh, yeah, because they kept calling him Constantine.
Yeah, Constantin. Yeah. And then Augustus and Jude. So I did like the story. I thought it was cute. Mackenzie Lee is not my favorite for several reasons. However, this was cute. So I did like the idea, like at the beginning, Constantin, everybody's just like, wow, you're so good at not getting distracted by the naked ladies. And he's like, I know, right? Do not.
Funny how that works.
Don't ask me any further questions. I would not like to be interrogated. And then Jute shows up to model nude. And he's just like, welp. This is deeply unfortunate for everyone involved. So that was fun. I liked that.
Yeah. I agree.
Where he's just like, I'm off my game. Clearly, that's what this is. Don't ask me any further questions. Would you like to move to get a better angle? No, I would not. Thank you. So that was fun. I liked Augustus. I found Augustus to be a pretty charming character in the story, where Augustus was just over there like, hey, how you doing? I drew some boots.
Yeah, exactly. Was it Augustus? He's like, I like drawing the fruit. And then our like main character is like, the fruit?
Yes. Augustus just over there like, yeah, don't ask me questions.
It's the same, like, funny how that works. Let's move on now.
It was kind of rough how much bullying happened toward Augustus during the story and how much an outcast he was. I guess he had to be to an extent to sort of contrast what the main character had to lose, which was interesting.
Yeah. I feel like bullying is always kind of like triggering for me just because of personal history and stuff. So
yeah, it's a rough topic.
Yeah,
it's definitely an interesting one to cover. So yeah, I think that's my little thing. I do like the depths of personal embarrassment to which Constantian descends, where he's just like, I said this, palette knife, I said this, bury me, that kind of thing, where he's just like,
this is going to be written on my tombstone.
Exactly. It's just like, okay, kid, calm down. No one actually cares as much as you think.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that's okay. So, and there was, the ending was pretty interesting.
No spoilers.
No spoilers, but it was interesting. So, yes. That one was fun. And then I think we both also really liked, do I want to talk about what now?
So, do you want to talk about your favorite, or do you want to talk about the pirate one?
I was going to talk about the pirate one, because we both like the pirate one a lot. And that just is funsies. Sweet Trade, Natalie C. Parker. Let's talk about it. So this one was 1717, right? Virginia?
Yep.
Yes! Pirates! That's all I need to say. Go forth. No. Sorry. So you have the main character, the girl, Clara, I think, running from a marriage, her second marriage, to a rather, he sucks, rather controlling future husband. And then when she hops on her boat, she discovers that there is a surprise stowaway, which was fun times. I am always here for, I want to run away from societal expectations. I'm going to learn how to sail a boat and become a pirate. Like, I recognize this does not actually reflect the reality of pirates. Okay, so it partially reflects the reality of pirates. Okay, so pirates have
definitely more pirate knowledgeable than me.
Pirates have a really complicated history that I won't entirely go into here, but there was definitely there's definitely a strong tradition of queerness among pirates. Like, that was an established thing, where there was that was a more fluid society in general, but also and you definitely have the Anne Bonny and the Mary Read, and I found a really cool quiz that I will find eventually to put down there, where you can figure out what pirate you are, because who doesn't want to know what pirate they are? I got Anne Bonny and then Mary Read, but I think Mary Read's probably more accurate. Mary/Mark Read.
I actually know Mary Read.
I know, those are the best ones. So for everybody watching who doesn't know Anne Bonny and Mary Read, so Mary Read dressed up as a boy to go onto a pirate ship. And then, hi, Merlin.
He always waits until we're recording.
There's the cat. Okay, so we're going to move that camera. Sorry, everyone. Just wanted everybody say hi, Merlin.
Hi, Merlin.
Hi, Merlin. He's back. He heard us. I know you like pirates. But we can't talk more about the pirates with you here unless you have research to add about the pirates. So he doesn't. Brief pause to get the tail out of my face. Sorry. Hello, sir. Okay, cool. That's handled. Sorry. Right, Anne Bonny, Mary Read. So Anne Bonny was like, oh, hey, Mark. And then Mark was like, actually, I'm Mary. And Anne Bonny was like, oh, hey, this changes nothing.
Hold that's good.
There's like a statue of the two of them back to back fighting. And there are definitely some historians who were like, they were just such good friends. And most people were like, yeah, friends, just gals being pals. Just right over there. And then, of course, there's Jack Rackham, with whom Anne Bonny left her husband to be in a relationship with, and who, by all accounts, was just totally cool with Anne and Mary. Was just like, awesome. Go forth. Prosper.
How interesting. I'm going to need to do more research on this because I only know Mary Read from Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
Okay, there's an entire TV show. I'm just going to be quietly linking things in the comments as we go because there's an entire TV show that you've got to check out with pirates, and it's dramatic, and it's stupid, and it's Games of Thronesy. Go forth, enjoy.
Yeah, sounds fun.
Yes, and it's very queer, of course, because, of course, it's got Anne Bonny and Mary Read. How did I get here?
Yeah, we're...
Oh my god. Also, we're running low on time. Shoot. Okay, so Anne Bonny, Mary Read ties in. Sweet trade. Excellent times. Always down for girls going off on pirate ships to become pirates and be like super gay. You had some thoughts about this and gender fluidity, I think, didn't you, in this story?
Yes. I'm quickly looking over my notes because my brain is like, there's just so many stories.
That's fair.
Yeah, because like the whole thing, they run away. There's the societal of marriage and children, which I feel on such a personal level, which you have also stated that you feel on a personal level. But it's like, I really liked the line, and I hope this isn't a spoiler.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
There's a line that says, we don't have to be boys, they only have to think that we are, we can be whatever we desire. And the idea of sexuality being tied into gender and the protective action of fake it till you make it, it just isn't a new topic. So I liked this gender, like they can think we're this, but we know we're this. It isn't a new thing. And I think it just kind of validates people who struggle with that, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
People who have to put on a fake or brave face for other people because of necessity or choice. So I just really liked that aspect of it. I mean, beyond the pirates.
Beyond the pirates. Yes, no, and that was just really lovely, that too. That they had to deal with those doubts as well of, can we even do this? And then they came around to the idea of, yeah, we can do whatever we want, which was really cool. Okay, I know we have limited time. I'm going to tie in really briefly to Red by Anne-Marie McLemore and then hop over to Every Shade of Red by Elliot Wake. It is purely coincidental that both of these books revolve around the color red. That is a coincidence. Red is not actually my favorite color. Okay, cool. So
wearing red.
I'm wearing a lot of colors right now. I went for that on purpose. Okay, so Red by Anne-Marie McLemore. I always really liked their work, and tying into that idea of gender fluidity in historical fiction, I really appreciate Anne-Marie McLemore putting a trans character in their story, specifically a trans soldier. And they have a little aside at the end of the story talking about how there's a lot of soldiers who wore men's clothing and went to war that were assigned female at birth. And then you have a lot of those who continued wearing male clothing and going by male names up until their deaths, and requested specifically that nobody look at their body after they die. Just like straight in the coffin, straight in the ground, don't look, keep your eyes shut. So that was definitely a factor. And then I really enjoyed that Anne-Marie McLemore, out of all the people in this anthology, covered an actual historical figure, Leonarda Amelia, who was also a cross-dressing outlaw. And so that is on top of the trans character. This is both of the characters have gender stuff. And then I really enjoyed that this is the only story in this anthology that supposedly took place in a variety of locations. This is the only one that wasn't in the United States or Europe. Props. Thank you, Anne-Marie McLemore. Because that was bothering me. And we get one in Mexico, and I'm like, thank you. I thought this was going to be all over the world. And we got Europe. So I appreciate it.
And even the one in Mexico is the 19th century, so it's not even like a current one.
Yeah. It was like 1890s, which props for that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Because I didn't want current, so that was good. And then Every Shade of Red by Elliot Wake. Robin Hood retelling. I don't want to spoil it. Just, oh my gosh, I'm the Robin Hood geek. There's some precedent in the legend for questions about Robin Hood's identity, and there's different origin stories for Robin Hood where Robin Hood is noble or Robin Hood is a commoner, and there's like evolution of the legend. I wrote a post for Fantastical Reimaginings that will be aired over the summer about this topic, and this one is an interesting new theory that I love, and that has precedent in the early ballads. And I can't say anything else because it's the last page spoiler. Anyway, I appreciate that the story was told by a deaf Will Scarlet, which is interesting to me because we get a lot of blending of the characters of Will Scarlet and Alan Adale, and Alan Adale is the musical one, and Will Scarlet is not. Will Scarlet is a noble. And so this one, they separate them intentionally and get to explore a little more of who Will Scarlet is on his own, because he's one of those characters that varies widely from telling to telling. How was that for speed reading? Was that good?
So good.
Okay. I
know you really wanted to talk about the Robin Hood.
I did. It's my favorite. Like, I was just sitting there one day and I was like, I really want to do a Robin Hood paper about this right here. And I actually looked up Elliot Wake because I was like, tell me you finished this, Elliot. Tell me you made this a full-length book so I can cite it somewhere as a full-length book and also read it. Tell me it's a series. And Elliot Wake was like, I write contemporary. And I was like, I still love you, man, but also no. Also, it now falls to me. So that's my story. Okay, do we have any last thoughts about this story before we go, about this anthology? We've got like 2 minutes.
So, I mean, I think it's really good. I think people should read it, especially people who want to do LGBTQ voices, even though that may not be the official genre, but
yeah, go for it.
It's a really good anthology, and it's definitely got a lot of history. I do know there are some small things that we both wish were different.
I mostly
like a
wish,
lack of,
yeah, I wish that there had been more, a little more diverse representation of the 17 stories. 12 were about white people. So questions there. Only one was set outside of Europe. Half the stories are in the 1900s. A quarter of the stories are in the last 50 years. So I would have liked a little more historical rep. I feel pretty good. The sequel is coming out next week, actually, called Out Now, the sequel anthology.
Oh, is it?
And that one is contemporary and speculative. And so I think I'll feel a little more positively about that one because it's not playing in my historical fiction playhouse. It's actually like going to mostly take place in the 90s, and it seemed like a lot of people were really interested in more recent contemporary stuff. So
okay, well, it's good. I saw that was getting released, but I didn't know when. So
yeah,
if you like this one,
check out Out Now.
There's a whole new one. But I think we're out of time also.
I'm sorry. Yes, we're out of time.
No, it's okay. We have a lot of thoughts.
I'm sure a lot of you have questions. We will answer them in the comments. It'll be great. So that'll be fun. Do we have, I think the next, there's upcoming story times. Check those out. We're actually having a Memorial Day story time on Monday. Check it out. Still happening. Mr. Brandon, go see.
Mr. Brandon.
Gotta see. Everybody gotta see Mr. Brandon. Next week, you will see my face again because I am doing A Princess in Theory, Reluctant Royals by Alyssa Cole, which is what happens when those emails about how you're secretly the fiance of an African prince, what happens when they're true? When your spam emails are true, what do? Anything else that we should cover? Hi, Ragu.
I mean, you're also doing our next mystery reads next week as well.
I was gonna make it a mystery. Anyway, yes, I'll be here for mystery reads. Come check it out. I'm not.
You gotta warn me.
I mean, it's not really secret. I'm joking.
I'm just not gonna say what it is.
We're not gonna say what it is.
So tune in and find out.
So tune in to find out. Anyway, thank you for joining me today, Stacey. I think this was fun.
Yeah, thank you. I love this book. I'm excited to read the next one.
Yes, it's going to be fun. All right. Check it out, everybody. Bye.
Bye.